Hi, good morning. Welcome to the Joy Business Report. Coming up this morning, Ghana's debt in relation to size of economy expected to take a nosedive this year. We'll hear from the IMF. Also, rating agency Fitch maintains Ghana would reach an agreement with its external creditors by end of this year to pave way for restructuring of the country's external debt. Plus, state-owned enterprises reduce losses by almost half as Food and Drugs Authority takes over as best performing SOE. Details coming up. Welcome everyone and hello to our friends listening on KTU Radio in Koforidua. First up, Ghana's debt in relation to size of the economy is expected to take a nosedive this year and subsequently for the next 5 years. That's forecast by the International Monetary Fund's Fiscal Monitor. This follows the restructuring of both domestic and external debt. Here's more in this report.
According to its October 2023 fiscal monitor, the fund said the country's total debt in relation to the size of the economy will fall to 84.9% this year from 92.4% last year. In 2024, the debt to the total value of goods and services would be estimated at 81.5%, whilst that of 2025, 2026, 2027 and 2028 are pegged at 78.8, 75.8, 72.8 and 70% respectively. The fund is also projecting Ghana's revenue in relation to the size of the economy to increase consistently up till 2028. It is projecting a government revenue to gross domestic product ratio of 15.7%, a slight drop from the 15.8% recorded in 2022. Meanwhile, the expenditure in relation to the size of the economy will fall from 27% in 2022 to 20.3% this year.
That was a Business Desk report. The IMF has indicated that it is going to review the growth target for this year as captured in the World Economic Outlook. A resident representative, Dr. Leandro Medina, has clarified to Joy Business that the 1.2% forecast was based on old numbers. Here's George Jaffe with more.
The IMF resident representative in a message to Joy Business noted that the World Economic Outlook projection, which was released in the report on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank meetings, was based on what he describes as old vintage by the IMF staff. He was, however, quick to add that it did not take into account recent data releases which showed a higher growth than expected at the beginning of the IMF program, averaging at around 3.2% for the first 2 quarters of this year. The IMF resident representative added that based on the findings of the first program review by the mission, the fund is more convinced that growth for this year will be revised from the 1.5% previously assumed. The governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, during a recent engagement with journalists, maintained that he expects the economy to grow by more than 3% by the end of this year.
George Jaffe there. Now, rating agency Fitch has maintained that Ghana would reach an agreement with its external creditors by the end of this year to pave way for restructuring of the country's external debt. This is coming after Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta expressed optimism that the country would reach a deal with external creditors before the end of the year. The second tranche of $600 million inflows for Ghana, according to the International Monetary Fund, is hinged on an agreement with the foreign creditors. Speaking at a webinar, a senior director in charge of sovereign ratings, Toby Ehlers, said the parameters for the negotiations with the private creditors will be reached by middle of next year.
On the timeline question, we're sort of assuming that the official creditor committee delivers an agreement by the end of this year. And so this is on the official debt relief, and that sets the parameters for negotiations with the private creditors. And then we assume that actually happens, reasonably promptly, sort of by the middle of 2024, which is obviously, quicker sort of timeline than we've seen in some other common framework cases. But that's our assumptions on the timeline.
Toby Ellis there, Senior Director in charge of Sovereign Ratings at Fitch. Now, state-owned enterprises recorded 1.7 billion cedi loss in 2021. That's according to the Minister of State Enterprises, Joseph Kujo. The figure, which is about half the 2.6 billion loss recorded in 2020, is seen as an improvement as SOEs have continuously recorded reduction in losses. Now, speaking to Joy Business at the second edition of the Public Enterprises League Table Pelt Awards, the Minister of State Enterprises, Joseph Kujo, emphasized government's effort to ensure the profitability of SOEs.
And the president looked at competencies. I can show you my CV to make appointment. And I sit in here working, and my competency has never been brought to question. So you cannot say president appointed me as a reward for fetching water.
You are actually saying that you have no knowledge of any
reward appointment.
Okay.
Because the people I see get appointed are competent to.
Apologies, that's not the correct audio there. Meanwhile, the Food and Drugs Authority topped the league of best performing SOEs. It was followed by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority and the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. We'll bring you the audio of Joseph Kujo when we have it subsequently. Now, the Chief Executive of the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, Kwesi Agyeman-Busia, has assured that the authority is working to meet the international standards for verifying modern vehicles. According to him, the government is supporting the infrastructure to ensure Ghana is able to test and certify electric or self-drive vehicles that may enter the country. He tells Joy Business his outfit is committed to quality standards.
The universality of it, the region, the sub-region, and the global. Everything we do in licensing, driver licensing, is standard, should be standardized. Because if you have a good license, a good record, you should be able to drive in other countries as signed by convention. So this is the idea of making sure we're preparing our drivers and our vehicles that will intake into the country for the future.
We see some of these cars in town already, for instance, the electric cars and all that. How is the regulation going for such cars? Do we have the infrastructure in place already?
We're building that. Because of that, we're working on it and building the standards for it. And it is, again, the reason why we're meeting, to understand the things that we have no clear knowledge about, to start collaborating and sharing knowledge on those things.
Kwesi Agyeman-Busia, the Chief Executive of the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority. Thankfully, we can now listen to Minister of State Enterprises, Joseph Kujo, emphasizing government's effort to ensure the profitability of SOEs.
The observation vindicates the president's vision he carries, that he wants to turn the public enterprises into positive performance. We've seen a decline when the 2019 report had 5 billion Ghana cedis in terms of total losses across the enterprises. Now you come to 2020, the loss comes to about 2.6 billion, and in 2021, the figure I've seen is about 1.7 billion. When you turn in any company or enterprise, when you doing restructuring into profitability, it always goes through that decline stage where a heavy indebtedness becomes lightened and then a break-even point, and then you experience profitability.
Moving on, senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Seram Kawo, is doubtful the downward inflationary trend is sustainable despite the 38.1% rate for September. According to him, inflation in the coming months will witness some increase due to the nearness of the festive season as demand for dollars will rise, thereby impacting prices of goods at the market centers. Mr. Kawo tells Joy Business it's going to be difficult to sustain the downward trend. He explains.
It's going to be very difficult to sustain it during this very period because we are getting to the festive season where a lot of imports are going to come in. Prices of commodities generally will increase during that particular period. We have seen a rate of increase in the fuel prices that we have. And so we are not going to be able to sustain this particular rate during this particular time. And let us also remember that in 2024, it's an election year for Ghana, and government tends to spend a lot. And during that time, prices also tend to go up. So we having the hope that it's going to be maintained will be very problematic for us.
Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Seram Kao. Now, government is set to formally engage customers of Black Shield Fund Management over concerns of delayed payment of their investments. The customers have been picketing the Finance Ministry, pushing the Minister to release bailout funds approved by Parliament. Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Mohamed Ahmed Adam, has been giving some more details about this engagement on PM Express, which airs tonight at 9.
This matter is in court, and I don't know if I'm competent to speak on that. Yeah. What I do know is that the Securities and Exchange Commission is involved in this matter, and under the direction of the Minister for Finance, I've invited the leadership of our citizens, our compatriots who are picketing, for a meeting so we can listen to their concerns and engage SEC and all other relevant agencies to see how we can bring a solution.
And is the hope that some progress will be made, Honorable?
Yes, I'm very confident.
You had Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, speaking on PM Express Business Edition, which airs tonight. Don't miss it at 9. Meanwhile, the Securities and Exchange Commission says majority of the customers, talking about Black Shield or formerly Gold Coast Fund Management, have received a fraction